Captain Jake Morrison stared at the screens in front of him, his coffee growing cold in his hand. The numbers didn't make sense. For 3 days, his deep space monitoring station had been picking up energy readings, unlike anything he had ever seen before. The signals were coming from everywhere at once, all moving toward the same place. Earth! Lisa, you need to see this, Jake called to Dr. Lisa Parker, who was working at her desk across the control room. She looked up from her research papers and walked over to his station. What am I looking at? She asked, pushing her glasses up her nose as she studied the display. Energy signatures, massive ones. They're not natural, Jake said, pointing to the patterns on his screen. Look at how they move. Too organized, too perfect. Lisa felt her stomach drop as she understood what she was seeing. The signals were arranged in perfect formations, moving with military precision toward their solar system. She had spent years studying alien life, hoping for first contact. This wasn't how she had imagined it would happen. How many? She whispered. Jake ran the calculations again, hoping he had made a mistake. At least 10,000 individual sources, maybe more. They'll reach us in 6 days. Lisa grabbed the communication device from Jake's desk and called Admiral Ryan Clark at Earth's Space Defense Command. The Admiral answered immediately, his face appearing on the small screen. What do you have for me, Morrison? Clark asked. He looked tired. The Admiral had been dealing with budget cuts and political arguments for months. He wasn't prepared for what Jake was about to tell him. Sir, we have a situation. A big one, Jake said. He quickly explained what they had discovered. Clark's face grew more serious with each word. Send me everything you have. I'm calling an emergency meeting, Clark said before ending the call. 3 hours later, Jake and Lisa sat in a conference room at Defense Command headquarters. Around the table were the most important people in Earth's military and government. Admiral Clark stood at the front of the room, pointing to a large display showing the approaching signals. According to our analysis, we are facing an invasion fleet of unprecedented size, Clark said. They will arrive in less than 6 days. Our current defenses would last approximately 4 hours against a force this large. Commander Amy Torres, leader of Earth's best pilot squadron, raised her hand. Sir, do we know who they are? What they want? Dr. Parker has been working on that question, Clark said, nodding to Lisa. Lisa stood up, her hands shaking slightly. Based on the energy patterns and formation structures, this appears to be what we might call a harvesting operation. We've seen similar patterns in our deep space observations of other systems. The fleet arrives, stays for several months, then leaves. The planets they visit go silent afterward. Silent? Asked President Kate Thompson, who had joined the meeting by video link. No more radio signals. No signs of civilization. Nothing, Lisa explained. We believe they take what they want and eliminate the rest. The room fell quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. Earth was going to be destroyed, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Commander Torres broke the silence. What about evacuation? How many people can we get off the planet? Maybe a few thousand if we use every ship we have, Clark replied. But where would they go? Mars and Europa colonies can't support millions of refugees. Jake had been thinking about something else. Dr. Parker, you said we've observed this happening to other worlds. Do we have records of these attacks? Yes, quite detailed ones. Our long-range telescopes have been tracking these patterns for years, but we never understood what we were seeing until now. So we know their tactics, their ship types, how they operate? Lisa nodded. We have extensive data on their methods, weapon signatures, fleet compositions. We've been accidentally spying on them for decades. A new voice spoke up from the back of the room. It was General Ben Hayes, Earth's top military strategist. If we're going to die anyway, maybe we can make our deaths count for something. Everyone turned to look at him. Hayes walked to the front of the room and stood next to the display. Think about it. We have information that could save other worlds. We know who these aliens are, how they operate, where they strike next. What if we shared that information with everyone in the galaxy? Share it how? Admiral Clark asked. Dr. Sam Rodriguez, Earth's leading expert on quantum communication, leaned forward in his chair. We could boost our communication array, send a galaxy-wide broadcast. It's never been done before, but theoretically possible. President Thompson's image on the screen looked thoughtful. What would we tell them? Everything, General Hayes said. Their ship designs, weapon patterns, attack strategies. Most importantly, we tell them who's next on the target list. These aliens don't just attack randomly. They plan years in advance. You're talking about warning entire civilizations that have never even heard of Earth, Commander Torres said. Exactly, Hayes replied. If we're going down, we take their element of surprise with us. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what Hayes was suggesting. You want to start a galactic war? No, Hayes said quietly. I want to give the galaxy a chance to defend itself. These aliens have been picking off isolated worlds for who knows how long. What if all those worlds worked together instead? Dr. Parker was already thinking about the implications. If other civilizations knew what was coming, they could prepare. They could coordinate. The aliens' greatest advantage is that their victims never see them coming. And their victims never warn anyone else, Rodriguez added. Until now. Admiral Clark looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. They all knew this was probably a suicide mission that would accomplish nothing. But it was better than dying quietly. How long would you need to prepare the broadcast? He asked Rodriguez. 48 hours to modify the array. Another 12 to charge it for maximum range transmission. That gives us 3 days before they arrive, Clark calculated. Torres, I want you and your squadron running reconnaissance missions. Get me detailed scans of their fleet. If we're going to warn the galaxy, we need to give them accurate information. Commander. Torres nodded. Yes, sir, my pilots are ready. Dr. Parker, I need you to compile everything we know about these aliens and their methods. Make it simple enough that any civilization can understand it. Already working on it, Lisa replied. Clark turned to face the room. Ladies and gentlemen, in 6 days Earth will probably fall, but if we do this right, we might just save the galaxy. As the meeting ended and people began to leave, Jake remained in his chair, staring at the display showing the approaching fleet. He thought about his wife and children at home, about all the people on Earth who had no idea what was coming. In less than a week, everything they had ever known would be gone. But maybe, just maybe, their sacrifice would mean something. Maybe, other worlds would survive because Earth chose to speak instead of staying silent. Jake stood up and walked toward the door. He had work to do. Dr. Sam Rodriguez wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked on the massive quantum communication array. The machine hummed louder than it ever had before, pushed far beyond its normal limits. Sparks flew from several control panels. But Sam kept working. They had less than 36 hours before the alien fleet would arrive. How much more power can this thing handle? Asked his assistant Jenny Walsh as she watched the temperature readings climb to dangerous levels. I honestly don't know, Sam replied, tightening another connection. We're in uncharted territory here. But if it breaks, at least it'll break, doing something important. Across the facility, President Kate Thompson sat in a small recording studio, practicing her speech for the 100th time. The words felt strange in her mouth. How do you tell an entire galaxy that they're all in danger? How do you warn civilizations that have never heard of Earth? General Ben Hayes entered the studio carrying a thick folder of papers. We've got the final intelligence report from Torres and her squadron. It's worse than we thought. Kate looked up from her notes. How much worse? The fleet isn't just big. It's organized in a way that suggests they've done this thousands of times before. Torres managed to get close enough to scan their ship designs. Each vessel type has a specific purpose. Troop carriers, resource extractors, communication jammers. This is a well-oiled machine. Hayes opened the folder and showed Kate detailed pictures of the alien ships. They looked nothing like human vessels. The designs were smooth and organic, like they had been grown rather than built. Some ships were enormous, easily 10 times, larger than Earth's biggest space station. What about their next targets? Kate asked. Dr. Parker cross-referenced the fleet's trajectory data with our astronomical records. After Earth, they're heading toward the Kepler system, then the Rigel colonies, then a dozen other inhabited worlds. The attack pattern suggests they plan to hit 47 different civilizations over the next 5 years. Kate felt sick. Billions of lives across the galaxy, all marked for destruction. Do we have names for these civilizations? Some of them. The Kepler Alliance has been sending radio signals toward Earth for decades. We never responded because we weren't sure they were friendly. The Rigel system has several mining colonies belonging to something called the Crystalline Collective. There are others, but most we only know by their star coordinates. Captain Nick Sullivan walked into the studio, still wearing his flight suit. He had just returned from the most dangerous reconnaissance mission of his career, flying close enough to the alien fleet to record their communication frequencies. "Ma'am, we've got their radio patterns," Nick said, handing Kate a data pad. "They're talking to each other constantly, coordinating their approach. Dr. Parker thinks she can translate some of it." "What are they saying?" Kate asked. Nick's expression was grim. "From what we can understand, they're discussing how to divide up Earth's resources. They're treating this like a business transaction. We're not people to them. We're just materials to be harvested." Kate felt anger building inside her chest. These aliens saw humans as nothing more than resources to be collected and used. They had probably done the same thing to dozens of other civilizations. Well, this time would be different. "Is the communication array ready?" she asked. Sam Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom system. "Almost there, Madam President. Give me 10 more minutes." Kate stood up and walked to the window overlooking the communications facility. Below, hundreds of technicians were working frantically to prepare for the broadcast. Everyone knew this would probably be Earth's last message to the universe. Dr. Lisa Parker joined them in the studio, carrying her own stack of research papers. "I've finished compiling the tactical data, ship weaknesses, weapon signatures, formation, patterns, everything we've observed. If other civilizations can use this information, they might have a fighting chance." "How do we know anyone will even receive our message?" asked General Hayes. "We don't," Lisa replied honestly, "but our deep space telescopes have detected radio signals from at least 30 different star systems. Someone out there is listening." President Thompson nodded and returned to her desk. She picked up the speech she had been practicing and read it one more time. The words were simple but powerful. She hoped they would be enough. Sam's voice came through the intercom again. "We're ready, Madam President. The array is charged and stable. We've got maybe one shot at this before the system overloads." Kate walked into the recording booth and sat down in front of the camera. Behind the glass, she could see dozens of people watching her. Scientists, military officers, technicians, all waiting to see if their desperate plan would work. "Citizens of the galaxy," Kate began, looking directly into the camera. "This is President Kate Thompson of the planet Earth. We are located in what you might call the Sol system, third planet from our star. We are about to be destroyed." She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "In less than 2 days, a massive alien fleet will reach our world. They come not as explorers or diplomats, but as conquerors. They plan to take our resources and eliminate our people. But before we fall, we want to share everything we know about these invaders with you." The broadcast continued for 20 minutes. Kate described the alien fleet in detail, sharing every piece of intelligence Earth had gathered. She listed the star systems that were next on the invasion list. She provided technical specifications of alien weapons and ships. Most importantly, she shared the aliens' battle tactics and strategies. "We know that many of you have never heard of Earth," Kate said near the end of her speech. "We are a young civilization, small and weak compared to what is coming for us, but we will not die quietly. We will not let these invaders continue their campaign of destruction without warning their future victims." She looked directly into the camera with fierce determination. "To the civilizations of the Kepler Alliance, the Rigel colonies, the Crystalline Collective, and all the others on their target list, you have time to prepare. Use it wisely. Work together. These aliens have conquered isolated worlds for generations, but they have never faced a united galaxy." Kate's voice grew stronger as she reached the conclusion. "We may not survive what is coming, but perhaps our sacrifice will give you the chance to survive what comes after." Do not let our deaths be meaningless. Stand together. Fight together. Win together. The broadcast ended and the communication array immediately began overloading. Sparks flew from every control panel as the massive machine destroyed itself from the strain of sending a signal across the entire galaxy. Sam Rodriguez watched his life's work burn out in a spectacular display of electrical fires. Well, that's that, he said with a sad smile. If anyone heard us, they heard us loud and clear. In the recording studio, Kate slumped back in her chair, emotionally drained. She had just delivered what might be humanity's final message to the universe. Now all they could do was wait and see if anyone was listening. Across the galaxy, on worlds whose names humans had never learned, alien civilizations received Earth's warning. Some dismissed it as a hoax. Others investigated and found the approaching threat was real. But many began to communicate with their neighbors for the first time in centuries, sharing the information Earth had died to give them. The galaxy was about to change forever. The message from Earth reached the Kepler Alliance first. Commander Zek 9 was monitoring routine communications when the alien broadcast suddenly filled his screens. The small, blue-skinned humanoid stared in shock at the human face speaking. To him from across the galaxy. Alert the Council immediately, Zek 9 told his assistant. We have received a warning from an unknown species called humans. Within hours, the Alliance's Emergency Council was meeting. The 12-member species had traded peacefully for centuries, but they had never faced a threat like this. Elder Moran, the Council's oldest member, spoke first. If this human message is accurate, the destroyers will reach us in 18 months, she said, her tentacles trembling with fear. We have seen what happens to worlds that resist. They become silent, forever. But we are not alone anymore, said Captain Vex from the warrior clans. This Earth species has given us something precious, time to prepare. Meanwhile, in the Rigel sector, the mining platforms of the Crystalline Collective were buzzing with activity. The silicon-based life forms had received Earth's message and immediately began sharing it with their scattered colonies. What they learned terrified them. The humans are right, announced Chief Miner Quartzion to the gathered crystals. Our outer colonies have been disappearing for years. We thought it was equipment failure or space accidents. Now we know the truth. The Collective's living ships, grown from crystal rather than built from metal, began moving toward the core systems. For the first time in their history, they were preparing for war instead of mining. On Earth, Ambassador Helen Ford found herself in the strangest situation of her career. She had been Earth's top diplomat for dealing with difficult international situations. Now she was trying to establish contact with alien civilizations that were responding to Earth's warning. We're getting replies, she told Admiral Clark as they stood in the rebuilt communication center. Dozens of them, species I've never heard of, are offering to help. Help how? Clark asked. They can't get here in time to save us. They're not trying to save us, Helen replied. They want to learn from us. They want to understand how we gathered so much intelligence about the invaders. The first alien ship to reach Earth's solar system was not what anyone expected. It was small, barely larger than a human shuttle, and it moved unlike anything Earth's scientists had ever seen. Captain Tony Cruz was leading a patrol when the ship appeared. Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense, he radioed. Please identify yourself. The reply came in heavily accented but understandable English. This is Scout Captain Thyra of the Ghost Fleet. We received your warning. We come to learn and to teach. Tony had never heard of the Ghost Fleet, but he guided the alien ship to the space station where Ambassador Ford was waiting. The being that emerged from the ship looked almost human, except for her pale gray skin and completely black eyes. My people are nomads, Thyra explained to Helen and the gathered Earth officials. We have been running from the destroyers for 3 generations. You call them an invasion fleet. We know them as the Hegemony Coalition. You fought them before? Admiral Clark asked. Fought and lost, Thyra replied sadly. They destroyed our homeworld 50 years ago, but we learned their weaknesses. They expect their victims to fight alone and afraid. They have never faced organized resistance. Dr. Carol Watson, Earth's leading quantum physicist, was fascinated by the technology the Ghost Fleet brought. Your ships move through space differently than ours, she observed. Phase shifting, Thyra explained. We exist slightly out of normal space-time. It is how we have survived. The hegemony cannot target what they cannot fully see. More alien. Ships began arriving. The aquatic Cetians came in vessels filled with water, offering their advanced shielding technology. The plant-like Verdans brought biological computers that could grow and adapt in real time. Each species that responded to Earth's warning brought something unique. Commander Steve Mitchell watched the alien ships gathering around Earth and felt hope for the first time in days. Maybe we actually have a chance, he said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Ross. Against 10,000 ships, Ross replied. Even with alien help, we're still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Numbers aren't everything, Mitchell said. These hegemony aliens have been winning because they fight unprepared enemies. We're not unprepared anymore. Dr. Parker was working with alien scientists to understand the hegemony's biology. What they discovered changed everything. They're not just conquerors, she explained to the assembled Earth and alien leaders. They're parasites. Each species in the hegemony coalition was conquered and forced to serve. They keep their conquered peoples in line through fear and isolation, so if we can break their control over their own forces, Admiral Clark realized, we might turn some of them against their masters. Thyra nodded. This is why your warning was so dangerous to them. For the first time, their victims are talking to each other instead of dying in silence. The preparations continued around the clock. Earth's engineers worked with alien technicians to build weapons that combined human creativity with alien technology. The results were unlike anything anyone had imagined. Captain Cruz tested one of the new hybrid fighters and was amazed by its capabilities. It's like the ship reads my mind, he reported to Mitchell. The Verdan biocomputers adapt to my flying style in real time. Chief Engineer Paul Grant was having the time of his life working with alien materials. Look at this, he showed Dr. Watson excitedly. Crystalline collective materials that get stronger under stress combined with Ghost Fleet phase technology. We can build weapons that become more powerful the harder they're hit. But the biggest surprise came from the outer rim of the galaxy. Captain Maria Santos was monitoring long-range communications when she detected something unexpected. We're getting signals from civilizations we've never heard of, she told Helen Ford. Species that have been hiding from the hegemony for centuries. Earth's warning convinced them to come out of hiding. How many? Helen asked. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. The galaxy is full of civilizations that went silent to avoid the hegemony's attention. They're all waking up now. Admiral Clark stood on the observation deck of Earth's main space station, looking out at the gathering fleet. Ships from dozens of species surrounded Earth, all preparing for the battle that would determine the galaxy's future. You know what's funny? He said to General Hayes, who had joined him at the window. We sent that message expecting to die alone. Instead, we've brought the entire galaxy together. The hegemony must be terrified, Hayes replied. For the first time in their history, they're not facing a single isolated world. They're facing everyone. The alien invasion fleet was still approaching, now less than a day away from Earth. But they were no longer approaching a helpless victim. They were approaching the center of the first true galactic alliance in recorded history, led by a species that had chosen to share rather than hoard their final secrets. President Thompson looked at the reports coming in from across the galaxy. Civilizations that had never spoken to each other were now coordinating defense plans. Species that had been enemies for centuries were sharing technology and resources. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said to her staff, we've already won the most important victory. We've shown the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Outside, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as ships from across the galaxy prepared to defend Earth and the new future it had made possible. The hegemony, coalition was coming, but they were no longer coming to face a lone world. They were coming to face a united galaxy that refused to die quietly. The hegemony fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, exactly when Earth's computers predicted they would. Admiral Keth Var, Supreme Commander of the Invasion Force, looked at his tactical displays and felt confident. Another primitive world was about to fall to the might of the coalition. Begin standard approach, he ordered his fleet commanders. Deploy harvesting ships behind the main force. This should be over quickly. But as the massive fleet moved toward Earth, Kethvar noticed something that had never happened before in his long career of conquest. The small planet was not alone. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple fleet signatures around the target world," reported his tactical officer, a nervous creature from a species the hegemony had conquered decades ago. "Impossible," Kethvar replied. "Our intelligence shows this species has no allies. They are isolated and primitive." Lieutenant Kelly Ross was flying, her hybrid fighter on the outer edge of Earth's defensive perimeter, when the hegemony fleet appeared. The ship she piloted was unlike anything Earth had ever built before. It combined human engineering with technology from 6 different alien species. "Contact," she radioed to the command center. "Hegemony fleet is entering the solar system. Count is... Holy stars, there are so many of them." "Stay calm, Ross," came the voice of Commander Mitchell. "Remember the plan, hit and run. Don't let them lock onto your position." Kelly activated her ship's phase-shifting drive, a gift from the Ghost Fleet. Her fighter flickered in and out of normal space, making it nearly impossible for enemy sensors to track her. She swooped toward the nearest hegemony ship and fired her new weapons. The blast that hit the alien vessel was devastating. Crystalline collective materials focused the energy, while Verdun biocomputers calculated the perfect impact point. The hegemony ship's shields collapsed instantly. "What was that?" Kethvar demanded as alarm signals filled his command center. "How did such a small vessel penetrate our shields?" Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out as human and alien pilots worked together in ways the hegemony had never encountered. Captain Tony Cruz led a formation of mixed fighters that moved like a school of fish, each pilot knowing exactly what the others would do without radio communication. Chief Engineer Paul Grant watched the battle from Earth's orbital defense platforms. His improvised weapons were performing better than anyone had hoped. "The phase cannons are working perfectly," he reported to Dr. Watson. "Every time they try to adapt to our frequency, the Verdun computers shift to something new." The hegemony's first wave of attackers found themselves facing defenders who anticipated their every move. Earth's intelligence gathering had revealed all their standard tactics, and the Galactic Alliance had prepared counters for each one. But the real shock came when Admiral Kethvar tried to use his most powerful weapon, fear. For generations, the hegemony had broadcast messages to their victims, showing the fate of other conquered worlds. The psychological warfare had always worked before. This time, when the terrifying images appeared on every screen in the solar system, they were met with something the hegemony had never seen: laughter. "Is that supposed to scare us?" Commander Mitchell broadcast back to the enemy fleet. "We've been expecting you for days. We sent your plans to every civilization in the galaxy. You're not mysterious anymore. You're just bullies." Captain Linda Brooks commanded Earth's battlecruiser Defiance, the largest ship humanity had ever built. It was tiny compared to the hegemony vessels, but it carried something special. Dr. Frank Miller had discovered a weakness in the aliens' biology, and Linda's ship was equipped to exploit it. "Take us in close," Linda ordered her crew. "We need to get within broadcast range of their command ship." The Defiance charged directly at the heart of the hegemony fleet, its CDN shields absorbing massive amounts of enemy fire. As they approached the enormous command vessel, Dr. Miller activated his special transmission. The signal was based on the brain patterns of the hegemony's conquered species. It was a simple message, broadcast in frequencies that bypassed the aliens' control implants. "You are not alone, others fight with you, break your chains." The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the hegemony fleet, conquered species that had been forced to serve their masters suddenly remembered who they used to be. Ships began turning their weapons on their own commanders. "What is happening?" Kethvar screamed as his own crew began to rebel. The carefully controlled hierarchy that had held the hegemony together for centuries was collapsing in minutes. The battle that was supposed to be a simple conquest had become chaos. Hegemony ships fought each other while the Galactic Alliance pressed their attack. Lieutenant Ross found herself flying alongside alien pilots who had been enemies moments before. "This is incredible," she radioed to her wingmate, a pilot from the Ghost Fleet. "Half their fleet is joining us." "Not joining," Thyra's voice replied. "Remembering. They were never willing servants. They were prisoners." The tide of battle turned completely when the Outer Rim civilizations arrived. Hundreds of ships from species that had been hiding for centuries suddenly appeared throughout the solar system. The hegemony found themselves outnumbered for the first time in their history. Admiral Kethvar realized his position was hopeless. "Retreat," he ordered what remained of his loyal forces. "Full withdrawal." But retreating proved harder than advancing. The Galactic Alliance had learned from Earth's intelligence about hegemony escape routes. Every time the aliens tried to flee, they found Allied ships waiting for them. Commander Mitchell coordinated the pursuit from Earth's command center. "Don't let them regroup," he ordered the combined fleet. "This ends today." The final moments of the battle came when Kethvar's command ship was surrounded by vessels from dozens of different species. The admiral, who had conquered hundreds of worlds, found himself facing representatives of every civilization he had ever threatened. "You have lost," came a broadcast from the Alliance fleet. It was President Thompson's voice speaking for all the gathered species. "Your empire of fear is over. Surrender now and your people will be treated fairly." Kethvar looked around his damaged bridge. Half his crew had already surrendered to the rebels. His mighty fleet was scattered or destroyed. The Hegemony Coalition, which had dominated the galaxy for 1,000 years, had been defeated by a species they had never even heard of until a week ago. "How?" he whispered. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of his own former slaves, now free of the control implants, spoke from across the bridge. "They taught us something you never understood. That sharing makes us stronger, not weaker, as the last hegemony ships surrendered. Celebrations broke out across the solar system. Ships from hundreds of civilizations danced through space, their crews cheering in dozens of different languages. On Earth, people poured into the streets, looking up at the sky where the lights of alien ships twinkled like new stars. They had survived. More than that, they had won. Dr. Parker stood on the observation deck of the space station watching the celebration. "We did it," she said to Jake Morrison, who had joined her to watch the victory. "No," Jake replied, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. "We didn't just win a battle, we changed the galaxy forever." Above them, the ships of the Galactic Alliance continued their celebration. The age of the hegemony was over. The age of cooperation had begun. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the starship Unity, watching ships from 40 different species working together to build something that had never existed before. The massive space station growing in front of them would be the headquarters of the First Galactic Council in recorded history. "It's beautiful," said her second-in-command, Commander Lisa Parker, who had left her research position to help coordinate the new alliance. "Hard to believe we're actually doing this." Sarah nodded, watching as crystalline collective builders worked alongside human engineers and Cedian technicians. Each species brought their own skills to the project, creating something far greater than any of them could have built alone. The aftermath of the hegemony's defeat had been more complicated than anyone expected. Thousands of species that had been enslaved for generations suddenly found themselves free but lost. They had forgotten how to govern themselves, how to make choices, how to live without fear. Dr. Alex Turner had spent the last 6 months traveling between former hegemony worlds, helping them rebuild their societies. What he found both inspired and saddened him. "They're like children learning to walk again," he reported to President Danny Walsh during one of their weekly video calls. The hegemony didn't just conquer them physically. They destroyed their confidence, their culture, their sense of identity. "But they're recovering?" Danny asked. "Slowly, yes. The ones who help each other heal fastest. The isolated ones struggle more." Alex paused, looking out at the alien cityscape outside his temporary office. "It's like your broadcast said, Mr. President. Cooperation makes us all stronger." President Walsh smiled. He had been elected to replace Kate Thompson, who had decided to step down after the war to focus on writing the history of Earth's first contact. Danny's job was to help guide humanity through the strange new reality of being part of a galactic community. "Any word from Captain Santos?" Danny asked. "She's found 12 more hidden civilizations this month," Alex replied. "Species that went into deep hiding centuries ago to avoid the hegemony. They're all coming out now, wanting to join the Alliance." Captain Maria Santos was indeed having the adventure of her lifetime. Her ship, the Explorer, had been modified with technology from dozens of species, allowing her to travel farther and faster than any human vessel before. Her mission was to find the civilizations that had been too afraid to reveal themselves during the hegemony's reign. Captain's log, day 163. Maria spoke into her recorder as her ship approached another previously unknown star system. "We've made contact with a species that calls themselves the Singers. They communicate entirely through music and have been hiding in the galactic core for over 1,000 years. Each new species that joined the Alliance brought fresh perspectives and technologies. The Singers' musical language helped bridge communication gaps between species that had never been able to talk to each other before. The Deep Space Wanderers contributed mapping technology that revealed hidden star lanes throughout the galaxy. But the most important changes were happening in the hearts and minds of billions of beings across the galaxy. For the first time in generations, different species were choosing to work together instead of being forced to serve a common master. Commander Steve Mitchell had been promoted to head of Galactic Defense Coordination. His job was to make sure that no single species or alliance could ever again dominate others the way the hegemony had. "The key is making sure everyone has a voice," he explained to a gathering of military leaders from dozens of worlds. "The hegemony stayed in power because they convinced everyone else they were alone. We stay free by remembering we're all connected." The new defense network was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of one massive fleet controlled by a single authority, it was made up of thousands of smaller groups that could work together when needed, but remained independent otherwise. Lieutenant Kelly Ross, now a squadron leader, was training pilots from 6 different species in the new cooperative flying techniques. "The trick is thinking like a team instead of thinking like a hunter," she told her mixed group of students. One of her pilots, a young Cedian named Bubble Current, raised a fin. "But what if we disagree on tactics during battle?" "That's the beauty of it," Kelly replied. "Disagreement makes us stronger. When we all think the same way, we become predictable. When we think differently but work together, we become unstoppable." The changes weren't just military. Trade between species had exploded. As civilizations shared resources and knowledge freely, art, music, literature, and science were all flowering as different cultures learned from each other. Dr. Carol Watson was leading a research project that included scientists from over 30 species. They were working on problems that no single civilization could have solved alone. "We've made more scientific breakthroughs in 6 months than Earth made in the previous century," she reported to the Galactic Council. "When you combine human creativity with crystalline collective materials science and Verdun biological computing, the possibilities are endless." The council itself met in the new station that Admiral Kim had been watching being built. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered regularly to solve problems and plan for the future. The meetings were often chaotic with dozens of different languages and communication methods, but they worked. Elder Miran from the Kepler Alliance served as the council's first speaker. "This is messy and loud and sometimes confusing," she admitted during one particularly difficult session. "But it is also fair and free and hopeful. I would rather have beautiful chaos than ugly order." The hegemony's former leaders were being held on a prison world, but they were not forgotten. Teams of counselors from freed species were working with them, trying to understand how their empire of fear had begun and how to prevent it from happening again. Former Admiral Kethvar had become an unexpected ally in this process. "We told ourselves we were bringing order to chaos," he explained to his interrogators. "But we were really just afraid of being different. We thought if everyone was the same, if everyone obeyed the same rules, then we would be safe. And now?" asked Dr. Frank Miller, who was leading the psychological evaluation team. Now I see that difference is not something to be eliminated, Kethvar replied slowly. It is something to be celebrated. The humans taught us that. Back on Earth, children were growing up in a galaxy that their parents could never have imagined. Schools now included students from dozens of species, learning together and playing together. President Walsh often visited these schools, amazed by how naturally the children adapted to their diverse classmates. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" he asked a young girl during one visit. "A galactic explorer like Captain Santos," the girl replied without hesitation. "I want to find new friends among the stars." Jake Morrison, now retired from military service, worked as a teacher at one of these integrated schools. He often told his students about the dark days before the Alliance, when Earth thought it would die alone. "Remember," he would tell them, "the greatest strength is not the power to destroy your enemies. It is the wisdom to turn your enemies into friends." As Admiral Kim watched the construction of the Galactic Council Station, she thought about how much had changed since that desperate day when Earth broadcast its warning to the galaxy. Humanity had expected to die alone and forgotten. Instead, they had sparked a revolution that freed billions and created a new age of cooperation. The galaxy was still dangerous. There were still conflicts and problems to solve. But now, when trouble arose, no one had to face it alone. The age of isolated worlds living in fear was over. The age of unity had begun, and it was more beautiful than anyone had dared to dream.